All right, so now that we have gotten our tulip cut out to a rough shape here and here and here, maybe some of you have gotten this, we're going to go over the next step, and that's going to be on filing this down to a nice smooth shape and a couple of filing techniques. Filing is easy once you learn the technique behind it, but it's going to be a little bit challenging here in the beginning until we get to learn how to do it. So if we take a look at this particular project, every cut on this is pretty rough, and that's why we call it a rough shape, and that's all plenty fine. When we file this project, I'm going to work on this section here and this section here to begin with. I'm going to use a couple of different files. I have a regular flat file here. This file happens to be abrasive on 3 of the 4 sides. This side, this side, this side, but not this side. That's important to remember because on this side here, I won't get anything done. So if I was filing and I didn't want to touch in here, I would make sure that my non-abrasive side was right here so I'm not putting a groove in. If I had this side, I'd be putting a groove in. So that's another important thing to remember when a file choice is taken. Sometimes you don't even need this to be flat, but it's something to remember when choosing the file for the test that you're going to perform. On this particular file right here, I'm going to go ahead and clean it off with a file cleaning brush. Most of the time you can just use the broom side. If it's really stubborn, sometimes you have to use the wire brush side, but not too often. When we use a file, regardless of how this is cut, some of us might have this cut so the file would be sitting like this. You don't want to file in that direction. We want to file it perpendicular or 90 degrees to our project. You understand? We want the file to be filing right down through so that it's perpendicular or 90 degrees to our project. If we don't do that, we are not going to come out with a nice, clean, crisp shape. Can we still see all my lines? Yes. On your guys, maybe not so. But that's something that we're going to remember. That's why we're starting with a nice, easy project, and then we'll work our way into the real nice one. So I like to sit right in front of it here. I'm right-handed, so I'm going to use my right hand to do it. If I was left-handed, I'd be sitting on the opposite side. I happen to have the lines facing me here so that I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to keep my file with the non-abrasive side right here so I don't get this. When I use my file, keep it 90 degrees, not like this, not like this. I'm going to work it in this direction and in this direction at the same time. And I'm just going to use a push stroke. Now if we take a look, I have a little bit of a radius right here. Watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to go up and over. I have a little spot right over here. I'm going to move this a little bit. I want to work this over like this, so I'm going to go like this. Oh, and I chipped out a piece, which is very common. Now, if you take a look right here, do you see how I worked that right over my top? And look, I'm going ever so gently. That's a shame that that little piece fell out. We're going to have to clean that with some sandpaper later on. When it happens. If we take a look, this is nice and smooth right now. We had a little bit of a chip breakout right here. It's not the end of the world. Makes us a little bit upset, but there's tougher problems in life. We're going to come over here, keep this parallel so that we can file perpendicular to our project, same way. Now, if I wanted to get these sections over here, I could put it like this and file from that side of the table this way. for the sake of our conversation, I know exactly where those lines are. And I'm going to file it down. Now up here I'm just going to do a light little round over of my top. Take a look here. I want to put this in my vise a little bit deeper. I had it up a little bit high. I don't want to break it. This right here, we're going to ever so carefully take a little bit off of this. See my lines right here. So this is looking pretty nice down in here. I can still see that I have a little bit of a relief cut down in this point, which means I want to file a smidgen right there. That one looks like it went away. That one looks pretty nice. I'm pretty satisfied with my top at this point. I don't really see any relief cuts or anything like that. I don't have any big grooves down here. I'm decently satisfied. I might go to a little bit softer of a file a little bit later, but we're going to move right onto this section right here. For this section right here, I'm going to use a half round file. It's flat on one side, round on the other. This particular file is pretty decent size. It's a little bit wider than this one. Both of these would work. This one's a little bit tough. Start with our bigger one here. When I use this file, same thing, I want to keep it perpendicular. All right, I just don't want to go back and forth. I want to go like this on an angle. So I'm pushing in this direction, I'm pushing in this direction, and I'm using the half round part of the file. See that? That looks mighty nice right there. We took it right down to our line. Had a little bit of a divot down here we're trying to get out. But I still see that right here I went into my relief cut just a little, or into my line with the relief cut just a little bit too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lock this down in my vise pretty close so that I resist the urge of breaking it. I'm going to grab my flat file, and I'm going to go ever so carefully. And that went right away. And we can still see a little bit of my line right here, so we're almost down to it. We could maybe take a little bit more off, but I think that's going to sand out nice and smooth. Now, we're not going to cut these two sections down here yet because we're going to do another lesson on how to drill a hole in the bottom, and we want to keep this nice and flat. But what we're going to focus on is filing this out and filing these out as you get them cut.